Hey guys, VaulSC here. Time for another infiNity bat rep, this time between Avatar, the Combined Army, the EI himself against NCA, Neoterra Capitoline Army, featuring old mate Jace, old mate Admiral JF from the forums, who's been away for a bit, other commitments, and hasn't been able to play with us lately, but he's back. So this time we're going to play a game of Biotechvore because this was the next mission I was going to play against him before he took a bit of a break. So we're back now. Biotechvore. This is a mission I've played, I think, once or maybe twice now. And I find it quite an interesting mission. It does make me think. I don't particularly like it just because it sort of skews the game towards some specifically strong things. But it is fun and it is interesting. One thing that sometimes trips me up is that your opponent can spend a command token to restrict you to the use of only one of your own command tokens in your active turn if you're going first, even if you're playing a limited insertion list. So by playing a limited insertion list, remember, if you're going first, you're not going to get the chance to use that many command tokens to bring your guys out of the zone. Now, looking at it, here's the table that we set up, and I'll just do a little bit of drawing. So let's pick a color for this bat rep. We're going to choose this blue one here. So the deployment zone is actually quite tight. It's only 8 inches each side, and you've got to get outside of the biotech zone. So 8 inches over here is, pretty thin sort of strip along there. Now I've got to get to a line which is about along here because I'll just put A for Avatar over here. This is the Avatar deployment zone, and then there's the NCA deployment zone over here, and they've basically got to get around to a strip which is sort of similarly across here. So I've won the roll for first turn, and I decided that I wanted to take this stable side just because I felt that I needed it. The reason I needed it is because this ridge here of terrain I felt was just enough to be able to hide the Avatar and some of my remotes to move up with. Whereas if I move the remotes over here, there's nothing really. I mean, this thing's not going to block them because they can't go prone. And to go up here, it's actually quite a way to get behind this thing. And this isn't particularly safe because you can shoot across through this line here. So with all my remotes, I figured the best plan was to go to this this piece of terrain over here from this side, and just use that as total cover. So I decided to pick the stable side. My opponent opted to give me first turn, which I thought was quite interesting. And I think at the time he was thinking, okay, if I give Combined Army first turn, I'm going to be smart and spend my command token to restrict them to only using one coordinated order, and hopefully they'll have to leave a few troops behind in their deployment zone and not really get any killing done. So that was his plan. Later on he realized, okay, maybe I should have gone for first turn because his list was designed a bit more for the Alpha Strike. We'll see a bit more about that soon. So getting to deployment, you have to make a dice roll at physical -3 if you want to use any abilities which allow troopers to deploy out in the field, like impersonate or infiltrate or airborne deployment. I had a specular killer and a shrouded, both of which attempted to deploy out in the middle of the field. I was hoping I'd get either one of those off because that means one extra model that I don't have to spend orders moving out of the zone, the biotech zone, and also it can provide me an order to move troops out. But I failed the check for this specular killer, failed the check for the shrouded, so they're having to deploy in my deployment zone. Because he had to deploy first, since I chose table side and he chose second turn, and because I had Strategos level 3 from the Avatar, he's having to deploy his entire list before I deploy anything. So I could have put my specular killer behind his Squallow, which he's going to be deploying in a second, but I realized that I'd have to make 2 rolls unless I've read the new ITS pack incorrectly. I think you have to first of all make a roll at Phys -3 to see if you're allowed to use that rule, impersonate, and then you have to pass a whip check to deploy in your opponent's deployment zone. And I figure if that's actually how it was played, it wasn't worth the risk. I do want to say, though, that this Krakot did pass his forward deployment roll, so he's going to be able to impetuous out of the biotech zone pretty nicely, and he's got super jump as well, which is one of my faves. Just through the middle, you can see I've got my specular killer on the right, a flash pulse bot, Unidron with forward observing, Icodron. This is not a list designed for this scenario. It's just my normal avatar list, which I always have run in other bat reps. Thinking about it a bit more, had I taken this game a bit more seriously, what I should have done is I should have actually included more Dacherat, say maybe include a Predator or something, just include something that can actually run forward, throw smoke. Smoke's very important to block off AROs in this one, and get out of the zone with Impetuous. So this is my extreme left-hand flank. You're just looking at it from my opponent's side of the table, and you can see the big boss, the final boss himself, the Avatar, with his ever-present helpful Docker Worm, and this camo marker is the Shrouded. So a bit of an overview look. So you can see on the right-hand side here, this is looking from the, between the side of the table. On my right is where I was deploying. On the left is where my opponent's deploying. So he's put down, where's the pen? That's his classified here. This is my classified here. And then there's the Avatar, Shrouded, Dr. Worm, and all of my other troopers sort of out here. So we're planning on moving through and taking advantage of this ridge here, which does provide a lot of total cover to especially Silhouette 2 or lower troopers and, of course, prone. But the Avatar should be able to set up his big tanky block there and see around carefully on either side and gain cover. And he doesn't really mind getting shot at. In fact, he wants to be shot at, because he can shoot back with his explosive gun, so long as he does have cover, and so long as Dr. Worm is nearby. So we recently had a news announcement recently. So Corvus Belli have said that you can use your whatever models in your collection to represent whatever other models in your collection, and that's fine in ITS. So my opponent, not actually having any Orc Trooper models on hand, is using these guys. So we've got the HMG guy here, and this is the multi-rifle guy here, and this is the boarding shotgun here, and this, of course, is the link leader. So he's running the Haris link team, which is going to allow him to more order efficiently get his link team out of the biotech zone, and, of course, his engineer, because he's going to be running a Squallow. So here's Squallow here in the middle of the deployment zone. Interestingly, his link team is Fusiliers, and the Fusiliers don't feature any heavy weapons at all. They're just combis. So he's got a Hacker and I think a Fort Observer and Bipandra in there. I found that really, really bizarre. He wanted to fill up the list and he wanted to have extra orders there, and he didn't want to spend any special weapons cost, because he's putting that all into the Squallow and the Orc Troopers. Personally, I would have given them at least an HMG, if not a missile launcher, just because it's just so cost efficient to have one of them upgraded in that particular way. So yeah, he was trying it. I would have given the Fusiliers something for sure. Alright, so my first turn, the Krakot Renegade, because he's put everything behind total cover, is free to move out with Impetuous and Super Jump, and then can be brought back behind this little dumpster here with a coordinated order later on. So I'm basically not attacking it all in my first turn. We're just moving guys to safety, so we've got the Impetuous moves from the Dacheratsi as well. What we can end up doing is move this Ichadron up the stairway to there. The Krakot can luckily Super Jump and then go prone on the top of the building, whereas the Dacheratsi can go prone just behind the dumpster here, and he's fine. The Specular Killer, of course, will go up the stairways and actually get there. I'm going to change the color of my pen to orange, just because obviously it contrasts with the buildings actually a bit better, so we'll stick with that. This is the view from my deployment zone, so you can see, if I move this up to here, there we go. So that's the final position of the Krakot, so let's get the drawing tool. Krakot's here. Ichadron's going to move up to this spot here. We've already got the Dacheratsi down behind that obstacle there. The Flashpole spot is going to go over to there. That's the R-drone. The Unidron's going to come up to this spot here. And this guy, unfortunately, is going to get left behind and die. The Avatar is very carefully positioning himself here, and you're not allowed to measure the 16-inch distance. And unluckily, I ended up getting it wrong, and he does actually take a wound in this first game round, but he had to stand there, because I really wanted him to be able to shoot across this line of fire here, and I really wanted him to get cover if he gets shot at by the Orc Trooper. To deny me cover, he has to get the Orc Trooper so far out here that he would actually not be in cover, and then I'm hitting him on 18. So the idea is there to entice him to waste orders that might result in a disaster when he loses the face-to-face role, as opposed to getting his link team and his tag out of the biotech zone. So that's the plan there. So there we go, moving troops up, Flash Pulse, Unidron moving up, Specular Killer into place, and that's prone. And we can see sort of our location here where the Shrouded is also moving in as well. And he's just going to ensconce himself behind here. And it's very careful. It's very important that even though he's going to be able to shoot at these the Shrouded and the Doctor, he can't slice a pie onto them, slice around the corner onto them without getting line of sight to the Avatar first. So If he wants to engage all three of them, that's fine. It gives me a better chance of killing him. If he's only going to attack the Avatar, then attack the next guy, then attack the next guy, well, Avatar can hopefully guts back into better cover or be repaired by the Dr. Worm. Or if he's really going to risk that, he might not be able to bring the rest of his army out of the biotech zone. So this is what I'm sort of banking on. And we can sort of see our final location here of troopers using this total cover area like we anticipated. And Igadron, of course, moving up on top of the building. So my opponent starting out by spending about 3 orders, moving his whole link team around the side of the table, because I'm not really sending any arrows out to him. There is one point where he gets hit by a flash pulse, but the flash pulse can't hurt him, and he's not going to be shooting back, so he gets hit by a flash pulse, and the link team successfully gets out of the red zone, the biotech virus plague area. So you can sort of see them moving around here and getting hit by a flash pulse. I realized I had a flash pulse also, or a plasma shot from my Unidron, but I forgot that it had line of sight, so that's just me failing on that note. You can sort of see here that this Unidron can just shoot out along the distance. Ends up getting nothing on the second attempt, but there you go. So what he's doing now is he's moving out of Squallow to a position where he can actually see. The photo doesn't show it, but the R drone is behind there, and there's a bit of an angle just so slightly past this wall where he can shoot the R drone and goes for the Unidron first, actually. It's the Unidron up there which he shoots at. The R drone's the second target, so he shoots the Unidron first because he can't get to the R drone. Sorry about that. So this actually line of sight didn't exist. It was this line of sight here we're talking about in the bat rep. Excuse me. So that's what happens first, and the tag does destroy the Unidron after a couple of goes because of Dogged, and then moves out to roundabout here and gets an engagement with the flash pulse bot. Now, disaster strikes for the friendly Squallow, and the Unidron, sorry, the flash pulse bot rolls a 16 and crits him to death. Unlucky. To be fair, though, when you're throwing 4 dice with Ballistic Skill 15, and it's up against a single shot at a Ballistic Skill 16, or Willpower 16, it's possible that he could also have just lost the face-to-face roll because I rolled a really high number and then failed the BTS check, so it wasn't like literally 5%, it was slightly higher than that, but still very, very unlucky. So I do want to point out, though, that he's not about to go on some sort of Rambo run here. This is the last thing that he's going to kill. So it's not as disastrous as it looks. It's not as if he's about to go like through one more order and then just kill my lieutenant and kill all my cheerleaders and kill important stuff. No, he was going to use his next order just to go back into total cover anyway and maybe spec fire me later on. He has to use the rest of his orders moving these guys up here, the orcs, or troopers, and the engineer out of his zone. So by getting crit there, he's basically just not achieving, you know, a result where he takes one order off me, so, and gets 8 points out of me. So it wasn't as big a deal as it probably looks. Okay, so there he is there, kind of stranded by the flash pulse spot. Now we go into the action, the interesting part of the game, and he's deciding to send his orc troopers out around this side. I thought he would actually send all 3 of them out around this side and move them around to here and leave them along this side of the building for me to potentially come after him. But he's deciding to go gung-ho here and moving out the HMG Orc Trooper to shoot at the Avatar. What happens here is because he's so audaciously moved out into the open, the Shrouded also reveals and flash pulses him, just to try and blind him, to reduce the chances of him shooting me with multiple rounds of HMG. Now let's talk about this. The Avatar shoots back at Ballistic Skill 15, +3 for range, and that's it. He needs an 18 to hit on 1 dice. And if he does win the face-to-face roll, damage 16 because he's a tag with the new fatality from ITS season, and it's an explosive round. The Orc Trooper, he's Ballistic Skill 14 or 15, I think it is, one of the two, 14 or 15, and he's got an HMG, and he can throw 5 dice at it, but it's +3 for range, -3 for cover, and -6 for ODD, so he needs like an 8 or a 9 there. So what are the odds for that? And I actually did have this handy because I thought this was quite an important part of the bat rep and I didn't really want to just wing it. So I looked it up on Dice Calculator. And unless I've got this wrong, let's just go through it. Okay, so Pan Oceania, Orc Troops, Attack is Shoot, HMG, Yep, that looks good. Range is the good range band. Link team is a +1 burst. He's not in cover. And on the other side, we've got Combined Army. It's the Avatar. He is firing the anti-material burst, and he is in good range. Doesn't have a link team or visibility, but he does have cover. So coming back to this, the Avatar is actually quite far ahead here. Now, I have already taken a wound from the BTS damage from the actual zone, so he's thinking, if I can only get 2 wounds on the Avatar, then I could win this game. And quite rightly, I mean, if he does take the Avatar out and especially removes it without just leaving it unconscious, then I've basically lost, because there's nothing else in my army which can inflict enough damage to really get me back in the lead. So this is a good way of actually trying to win the game there on out. But the Orc Trooper has a 26.40% chance of inflicting 1 wound, which wouldn't kill it, and he'd have to keep going, and just a 3.62% chance of inflicting 2 wounds on it outright. So for that to happen, he'd either have to get 2 crits, or win the face-to-face roll with, say, a crit and a wound that doesn't get saved, or maybe get several hits through, and I just don't save 2 of them. 24.34% chance that Knight player succeeds, and that's kind of bad for PanO, because it means that he's spending orders and not moving as fast as he could do, and he's not killing me either. And the Orc Troopers would, at the end of the day, just be left out there, and I'd be able to come after them with the Sepsitor or the HMG. There's a 49.26% that I inflict 1 wound back on him, and a 34.67% chance that I just kill him. That's 2 wounds. So this shootout is a situation where the Avatar has a higher percentage chance of just killing the Orc Trooper back than the Orc Trooper does of killing the Avatar. In terms of risk-reward, though, it's never always that simple. Do you go, okay, even though I'm at a disadvantage in this game, I can win it outright just by doing this, and even if I lose the Orc Trooper, I still got a chance of winning because I've still got the Squallow? I actually think that this move is okay. It's not that bad. The only thing I would have done differently, if I was just going flat out for this particular play, is I would have activated the Orc Trooper from the start, like the very first order. I would have moved him out and taken cover and shot at the Avatar and hoped to get 2 wounds. If it didn't inflict 2 wounds and he, fell guts and went back into cover, then I'd just continue with my turn. If I died straight off the bat because I got unlucky, then I'd spend the rest of my orders in my army just basically moving out and hoping that life goes on. But he's opted to go for a bit of a faster approach, which is to move around here, and unfortunately the Orc Trooper gets smashed. So there you go. I felt a bit bad that the Avatar didn't take any damage from that, but after looking at the dice, it's pretty clear that the Avatar is actually a pretty good spot, cover and ODD, and basically armor 12 if he's not getting any crits, so that's huge. Alright, so he does get a fair way out here after doing this, and he does actually kill the Shrouded, who doesn't get any hits off with the Flash Pulse, and he turns to his multi-rifle guy to destroy the Shrouded, so at least taking down that trooper, which is my only way of picking up telemetry, so I can't complete that classified. There you go there, he's just moving ever closer. Just to remind you guys that this guy here is the guy with the multi-rifle, and this is the guy with the HMG, but he's got the boarding shotgun guy there, so this is Mr. BSG guy, and that's the multi-rifle guy there, and of course the HVT, we all know and love. Okay, so there's his final positioning. No, that's not his final positioning. He's just moving the engineer around, because the engineer is just fleeing for his life, trying to get out of the way of the zone. And finally moves his troopers up here. And this is one of the things which I find really intriguing about Biotechvore, is that if you're going first, you're spending your turn getting out of the zone, and then your opponent's spending their turn out of the zone. So you get to be the first player to go after the enemy troops, which are now a lot closer to you because you're inside of a strip and through the middle of the table. So this can be quite good for short-range troopers. Imagine taking a lot of infiltrating troopers which succeed in the role, or in a situation like this where you've got a tag which is quite good at close range, being right next to the targets that he effectively hard counters in a lot of cases. First, impetuous order, the Datcharats are moving out here and blasting with his chain rifle. My opponent opting not to dodge but to shoot him instead, and just gets hit by the chain rifle, and by Pandra is eliminated. Boom! Chain rifle. Okay, so it would be an insult to the Avatar to not move over there and use the Sepsitor. I figured that my opponent might opt to dodge, knowing that he'd be up against the Sepsitor and then I'd be at short range, but he opts to shoot at me instead. I think this is a mistake. I think that surely what you want to do here is to dodge, because when the HMG comes for you, it's just at natural 12s because of cover, and he's still got an armor save to make. He's got 2 wounds. May as well make use of the durability of the Orc Troopers, which is their best feature, rather than getting sepsitorized. So that would be, because it's going to cost me more orders that way in the long run. This guy's prone, so originally when the Avatar moves out to here, he only sepsitorizes this guy first, and then he's able to move directly up to the cover here and sepsitorize this guy as well. So, ray gun. Luckily for the Avatar, he's armor 9, and the boarding shotgun and the multi-rifle do not penetrate that hefty armor. And the big boss, the final boss of infiNity, comes through and fries the brains of both of these Orc Troopers with the Sepsitor. So not only do I now control 2 Orc Troopers, that's a huge wad of points, like over 100 points, which is now in null state, so that's counting for the scenario, which is quite important. Also moving across with the Dr. Worm chap here, he has a classified to complete, so I've selected D-charges, and I'm going for this wall here, which is my classified objective for this building. So it just needs to move on to this and detonate some D-charges, and that will be a classified effectively scored, which is awesome. And classifieds are important because you get a point for each classified plus an additional point for having more classifieds completed. So I'm trying to get an early head start. He's standing next to the HVT as well, which is also hopefully going to be my secondary classified, since I can't complete it now that my telemetry guy's gone. So you see this blank wall here? Not anymore. It's blown up with some Dr. Worm D-charges. Moving back, just because I'm sort of worried he might come after me with his tag, this flashball spot here didn't manage to get outside of the Biotechvore zone, or he got shot or something like that. So I've really only got 4 models left. I've got the Krakot, I've got 5 models: Krakot, Specular Killer, Icadron, I've got the Dr. Worm and the Avatar, and this is the HVT here. So in my opponent's turn, with only like 5 orders left, he decides to use his guy way off in the distance here to fire his flash pulse here at my HVT and forward observe me, picking up a classified objective, which is quite a strong move there. Then he's moving his link team up the stairs of this little block of cubes, and he's doing the same thing to this guy to target him or telemetry him. So he's got retro-earning, he's got the one where you have to you've got to forward observe the HVT, then he's got the other one where you forward observe just any enemy trooper, so he's achieving both of those, and then he uses the combi rifle to kill the Icadron, just to be even more insulting. Luckily didn't have line of sight to the Krakot because it was too close to the wall though. And basically ends up back here with, he's got Lieutenant, another Fusilier pleb, he's got the Hacker, Forward Observer I think it is, and Bipandra's down. He does put the Squallow into suppression fire as well. What I thought he might have tried to do in that particular turn would have been to lob speculative fire from the Squallow and kill Dr. Worm, because that would have netted some points, and it would have set him up for quite a brutal final turn where if he does do any more damage to the Avatar, I can't revive the Avatar, and it could have been bad. But it's risky, so unlikely you do a wound to the Avatar as well, given the armor 9 and the damage of the Grand Launcher. So I can see why he did this. I mean, 2 classifieds gives them the opportunity to go up by having 1 more classified achieved than me, and to have the bonus for having more classifieds. The problem is, though, that I'm likely to get my classified even though I don't have the last turn, just because his Orc Troopers have been sepsitorized. So my final turn, super jumping Krakot with Impetuous dives out over the thing here, and decides to shoot me with his Squallow with suppression fire here. And everybody else dodges, because they know that he's got two chest mines. Knowing that this model here was worth a bit more as the Hacker, and this model was potentially as Lieutenant, and I'm not even sure if I could get line of sight to this guy during the super jump. We talked about it. It looked like I probably could, but I decided not to shoot him anyway. Decided to blast the Red Fury, 2 shots at the Hacker, 2 shots at the Lieutenant, managed to erase them both, damage 14s. It's just because I was shooting from this point back here to give me the extra range. So if you look carefully at this, the range here needs to be 8 inches and 8 inches to here, and I have to choose the same point to do the shot. Whereas if I shot from this particular point, it might have been within the 8-inch gap here, so that's why I don't think I could have shot at that particular model there. So as it happened, I did take out his lieutenant. With 4 orders left, I'm using my traitorous, sepsitorized Orc Trooper with boarding shotgun to move over to this specific point here behind total cover. Now, my opponent is in suppression fire, but because the game's weird, and we all know that the structure of orders can be a little bit wacky sometimes, all Orc Trooper has to do is move to within zone of control of the Squallow. The Squallow has to choose to forfeit its aero completely or change face because it doesn't have Sixth Sense. And then I can simply walk the other 4 inches around the corner into close combat. I get a single combi rifle from the Fusiliers, which I tank anyway, and that puts me into close combat with the Squallow, meaning that he has to actually cut through 2 wounds worth of Orc Trooper before he can spec fire me at the end. If you're desperate, you can always spend a couple of orders on the Squallow, just go spec fire, and if both shots kill the Avatar, then he just wins the game hands down. So I wanted to eliminate that possibility, even though it was a very small possibility of that happening, and I don't lose anything by throwing the boarding shotgun Orc Trooper in there. So there he is. Happy days. I kind of wanted to roll out the close combat, but my opponent decided not to use his final turn and basically effectively concede the game because he was in lost lieutenant and there's nothing he could do. We looked at the points. I think it was a objective points 8-4 victory for combined army. Afterward, tallied everything up. We both got our classifieds. I'd got like 195 points left remaining, even though that was only like over 3 models, I think it was, which is crazy. You got Dr. Worm, Avatar, and Speculo Killer, which is like 195. So 2/3 of my list just in 3 models, which is quite fun. Whereas my opponent didn't have the requisite category. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. This has been another Avatar game. It's been a rare Biotechvore game, bit of a funky mission. We were talking afterwards about what would have happened if we'd gone for very aero-heavy lists. I want to point out that it's good to take smoke in this mission, and it's good to take camo markers, and it's good to at least attempt to deploy models with infiltration if you can, because you can still put them in your deployment zone if you fail. I think if my opponent had gone for something like Swiss Guards and TR bots and so forth, I would have been better off going for more Dacheratse, and I really should have in this particular list. I could have also gone for my own Noctifus and so forth, or a Shaz Fasti list with a lot of infiltrating camo. But hey, I mean, it would have been a different game. We still would have had to do a bat rep, and things would have happened. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this one. Hopefully back soon. I am aware that there's some news. This is Uprising book. There are some new factions coming out. I'm going to take the time to sort of see all the facts first, take the time to read through it, see what people are saying, and then do some reviews. Look out for that.